Thank you so much, Juanma, and thank you everyone for the opportunity to host this wonderful panel. A little bit of housekeeping. I think we have around 45 minutes for the session. So we'll be asking hopefully difficult questions. My whole purpose here is to make sure that they disagree on some of the topics so that we can get meaningful conversation going. We don't need no education, as Juanma was referring. I think looking at the average age in the audience, Pink Floyd, a very relevant song and lyrics around perhaps what has been an important topic of the first industrialized concept of education, right? And how we don't want to bring human beings up that are all equal or no different or that they don't bring value. And I think it's interesting how we're going to connect that topic with the role of technology in education publishing. So I have with me two of the leading global publishers in education that have phenomenal examples of technology application, and one leading technology company that also knows how to apply technology in an education setting. So I'm very pleased with the panel. Mine, we have two Albertos, so I'll be referring to them by their last names as well. And briefly about me, I'm Pablo Langa. I'm the CEO and the founder at EDT&Partners. We're a service provider to the education industry, including the publishers. And my role today, as mentioned, is to make the next 45 minutes hopefully enjoyable, but also disagreeable as we move along. So I'm going to ask the three of them to introduce themselves individually, but I want to throw already a couple of questions for them to address. And the first one is going to be education technology. Is an ally or is it an enemy, right? So as they introduce themselves, I will ask to please address that one. The other one, I think, just to make it complex, two questions in one. There's been an interesting polarized activity when you look into governments, whether devices and technology in early years or not, including in this country, but very recently Denmark, for instance, has completely banned any sort of device, even if it's for educational use, and they're in the process of getting that as a regulatory component. You have the opposite example of South Korea, where more than 30% of the content is digitized even for early years, and they are using devices as kindergarten, right? So the second question, as you introduce yourselves, will be as well Denmark or Korea, and more importantly, why, right? So Alberto Polanco, if you don't mind introducing yourself and addressing the questions.
Thanks, Pablo. My name is Alberto Polanco. I'm the CEO of Santillana Group in Mexico. I've been working for the education industry for more than 30 years. The last 25 years I've been living in Latin America, in different countries, Bolivia, Argentina, Central America, Guatemala, Colombia, and now the last 4 years I'm living in Mexico, running the Santillana company. I was an actor in the Santillana transformation to digital for the last 15 years with some other colleagues of the group, and also led by our executive president, Francisco Cuadrado. And I'm very glad to be here, answering the question that taking education is an ally. Yes, it is an ally, Pablo, but as far as certain conditions met, such as expand education, break walls, jump barriers, cross borders with education and connectivity. Of course, personalize education by developing adaptive learning programs, strong adaptive learning programs, especially right now with AI, using AI. Another key point is to be an ally is the teacher training. Strong teacher training programs to use technology, to assess students, make an assessment, evaluation, has data of the students. And the last one is more important, is very important, is develop local content of quality content. It's not coffee for all. We have different programs. Every country has a different program, different curriculum, and I think it's very important that we all develop local content adapted to the students. About Denmark and Korea's completely two different approach in education. Denmark is more holistic, more they focus on develop wellness in students, holistic and socio-emotional process, rather than South Korea is focused on performance, academic performance of the students, powered by technology, so efforts in efficiency of the students, completely two different. Both of them have weakness and strengths, okay? Maybe Korean students are a lot of stress pressed by the performance, academic performance, and maybe Denmark students has not that strength, so maybe their performance, academic performance is not as high as South Koreans, but they live happier, if we can say that. I don't know which one is the best, but in my opinion, it would be a mix of those two.
Very fair. Thanks, Alberto. Tony, if you don't mind.
Thank you, and hi everyone. So my name is Tony Lorin. I've been in the publishing/education industry for 13 years. I was actually based in Singapore when I moved across, and I used to work for a big conglomerate, including magazines, financial services. And when I reflect on that time, and I had to choose between actually going to a dusty publisher back then or staying with the financial industry, and I made actually that move across, and when I reflect, I wish that was probably the best decision I made in my career, right? So, and I can say that. So I spent a fair bit of time in Australia, 10 years, almost 10 years in Singapore, a few years in London. I now live in Madrid, and after almost 20 years outside my home country, I still have this bloody French accent. I know it's terrible, but that's life. I've been running the business for McGraw for international since 2020, just a couple of months before COVID, and actually I thought at that time that I would have a very short career at the head of the international business because the numbers were not very good at that time. So just on your question, right, so technology, is it evil or a lie? Of course, that's a lie, right? I think I was saying evil. I think my boss would crucify me anyway. So that's, of course, a lie, right? And I see technology as a great opportunity to really continue to empower instructors, teachers, to make the best use of technology to drive engagement, and of course, continue to use technology to provide the best possible experience for students, right? And I'm sure we are going to talk about example a bit later today. Your question about Denmark and South Korea is a very interesting one, right? So, because of course, South Koreans are very cool about the use of technology from a very early stage, kindergarten and so on. You may argue, looking at the PISA result over the past few years, that actually Korea is doing a very, very good job, right? But you should know that as well, Korea is the largest market in the world for tuition fees, so after school, right? So means that the Korean kids, after a full day in class, is going to spend 3 or 4 hours after class, right? And this is a very basic classroom where kids are going to do exercise, math, science, be corrected. They will have to prepare for the next, for the following week. So it's not an easy question. I would say it's probably more cultural than philosophy. So how do you actually make the best use of technology as part of your learning journey, right? And again, I remember when I took the job back in Singapore in 2012, there was a curfew imposed in Korea so that the kids don't go to school after midnight. So that's also a question about, as you said, well-being and cultural differences, right?
Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you, Tony.
Thank you.
Alberto.
Okay, so thank you, everybody. Yeah, my name is Alberto. I come from this company, VQ. We are an educational company from 12 years now, and we have worked almost in everything in education. We make teacher training, we work directly with the students, we make software development, EdTech, artificial intelligence. So we are particular in that sense that we don't make a single thing, but the wide broad, and that's why also we have this appreciation among our clients, because we can make everything. We work with publishers, schools, foundations. But going to the question, which is the important thing here, I think that technology itself cannot be considered a friend or an enemy. Maybe the mistake has been ours when we consider technology as the goal. Technology should help to another goal, in this case education. So it should help teachers teaching, students learning, publishers publishing. So when technology takes the important place, it clearly becomes the enemy, because the tool substitutes the artist, and that has no sense. So, so in that sense, technology should have this purpose, should have a human face that helps humans. Not everything that we are able to do, it's good. We have experience of that. The atomic bomb, we can do it. It's not good. And with technology, it happens the same. And maybe we have been moved by this, oh, wow, we can do that. And is that good? It will help somebody. It will help a student, a teacher, a publisher. I think that the question should begin before, and then what technologies are appropriate for the goal we are working on. So the first question is, which is our goal? And in that sense, between Korea and Denmark, well, I choose Spain, of course, because I'm Spanish. I think both, as they also have said. So technology has been so wrongly used in education, in which we consider digitalization is putting a PDF on a tablet and reading, that it's so great that, at least in Spain, they are forbidding this. I mean, it would be great that the students go back to books, written books, and one page after the next one, and not just providing information on a device which is not made for that. So sometimes for going from a bad use to a good use, you need a time of completely stop. It's like smoking. I don't smoke, but I've heard that people say if you smoke, you have to completely stop, and maybe after 20 years, you can take a cigarette from time to time. I think that with technology, it's something like that. So I think it's good to stop and think which is the use we want to give to technology, and then apply that. But don't just do it because we can. So digitalizing a school is not putting Chromebooks. It's not that. The important is what's in those Chromebooks. What are they used for? And I think we had forgotten, at least in Spain, we had forgotten that in the last 10 years, which the educational project of the school was Chromebooks in the classroom. But Chromebooks for what? So I think that's the aspect. It should be important.
Thank you, Alberto. In fact, I'll do a small reflection, and I'm going to do a segue from what you are describing. The most impactful technology in some African schools, this is actual data, has been making sure that all kids could have a warm meal, right? Because they were not well nourished. So sometimes it's going back to the basics, how you create a good human being, and not only talking on developed countries, right? So let's pick on that for a second, and I promise you we're going to talk about AI, right? I mean, we have to. But perhaps it's interesting that we take the education technology industry. Probably it's been alive for almost 30 years now. And I think we have a great group of experts here to actually maybe dissect it a little bit based on your experiences. Alberto, you were mentioning a few. You think it has lived the promise? It has really achieved the promise that we had? Like, if you look back, the first iPhone came out in 2007. 2010, it was the iPad. 2012, we were left believing that social media was going to be the way we will all learn. I think a few years later, it was virtual reality, and everything was going to be with glasses and virtual reality. Maybe it's happening now, who knows? But I want your opinion on, before we jump into other areas, number one, also from a business perspective, right? What has this meant for publishers and for service providers to the education industry? have we lived to the expectations that we had with education technology? Just to make it a little bit, kind of to shuffle a little bit, I'm going to start with Tony right now.
I mean, basically the question that we fulfilled our promise with technology, right? I mean, it's a difficult question. In this context, a few years ago, COVID started, right? And during a couple of years, we had a massive use of technology, right? And now we experience actually the biggest learning loss that we have probably experienced in the last few decades. And when you talk to any teacher in a university, they would tell you the same thing, right? So the learning loss has been massive, and they have to put actually program in place to make sure we can actually get the student back to the level where they should be, right? So if we just say that, I mean, we cannot say that we have somewhere fulfilled a promise, right? At the same time, we can argue that teacher, parents, the entire ecosystem was not ready for that shift, right? So, but we had, in effect, a large-scale experiment back then, right? So we cannot say that. The truth is, over the past few years, we've seen actually, because we have this experiment, we could actually improve a lot actually of our tools. And we've seen actually a number of new technology, of course, with Gen AI, and we are going to talk about this a bit later, right? So, but we also actually massive takeaway from those times where we could actually, and we could have actually improved our product, right? And now, I mean, we had a couple of situations where people, after the pandemic, decided to come back to print, but most of the time, actually, people have decided to actually stick with digital, which is actually, of course, a very good news. Again, if you think about actually just a couple of things that probably don't necessarily look obvious to us, but think about the access of students to content, right? 15 years ago, you had to buy a very expensive textbook, and I agree, it was very expensive, right? And now, for basically a fraction of the cost, I mean, for a fraction of the price of a textbook, you have access to a proper courseware with, of course, an ebook, with search engine, with a question bank, with assessment, with assignment, with AI tools being embedded as well to make sure actually the teacher can understand actually what's going on in this classroom. In just a couple of years, and I want to really say that an example, I think we have developed actually tools and products that are much more available that actually used to be a textbook. We have provided access to a huge, very deep content through our ebook library, ebook collections, whatever, that help a lot of kids. I mean, going to the library, you don't need to fight for a book. We can actually now just have access online. I know it's probably look obvious to many of us, but 10 years ago, library was still actually buying a lot of textbooks, and that's now a very, very different world. So I just use those two examples to just make sure that we remember that there have been actually a very, very good progress over the past couple of years.
Would it be fair to say a 7 out of 10 in terms of the promise, or?
I would say 6 out of 10.
6 out of 10. Okay.
So there is still a lot of runway.
Okay,
yes.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Alberto Valero.
That's a good question. I think that technology makes promise that then cannot comply sometimes. Or else maybe we make technology make promises that cannot comply. We put too much hope on technology solving certain problems, which maybe it's not technology that should solve them. So the point in the last year, what we have seen is that students don't read anymore. They are not able to concentrate on textbooks, not also novels or literature. So things are changing very fast, and I wonder if that's our fault with what we have offered them. So we cannot regret that small children cannot concentrate on a piece of text if we have forced them to study on a screen with access to the internet, YouTube, social networks, and so on. We could say it has been our fault. We have put them in an impossible situation, giving them the cell phone and giving them all this stuff. So they are the result of our doing. So in that sense, again, I won't say it's the fault of technology, because there are other devices like ebooks which are the opposite. They let you focus, they don't tire your eyes, they don't have so many interruptions with notification and all that stuff. They allow accessibility, so there is great technology out there. But I think now it's the time for thinking, because I know we are not speaking about AI, but AI can change things in the sense that it goes back to the way we naturally relate, which is speaking by dialogue. So thanks to AI, maybe technology can recover the dialogic aspect of education, of learning. We can maybe ask the book, can you explain me that? And the book will explain to you. Of course, it's another kind of book. It's not anymore a book made of pages. It's a book in which you have contents and you question the contents. And the contents give you an answer. And also the book can help you learn. Repeat this with me and so on.
So would you say it's fair to say a lack of digital hygiene has prevented us from maybe exploring effective uses of technology in the classroom, right?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay, okay, interesting. Alberto, I'm curious as well if you can elaborate, in the past years also, what does it mean, or what meant the introduction of technology, especially in Latin America, the regions that you have been working on, also from a business model perspective, right?
Yeah.
The type of impact, the type of innovation that came out of that.
Well, at Santillana Group, we have a great experience of success with one project that we call System 1, that changed innovation, transformation from standard education to a new model of education and a new business model. We moved 15 years ago, we launched Sistema 1 in Mexico and Colombia and Brazil. And we really moved from standard traditional education, paper-based textbooks, into an integrated solution, integrating content, hybrid content, paper-based and digital content, service, academic service for students, for teachers, a strong teacher program, the Do-Maker experience, learning making, English assessment, English certifications, LMS, CMS, service to families, communication. So it was, we moved from traditional education into an integrated solution. That was the first innovation and transformation of the process. The other part was the business model of the project. We moved from a traditional distribution of textbooks to a B2C model, directly to the families, directly to the students, to the parents, with a payment platform, strong payment platform, and that really made us more profitable, the project, for sure, and also, and I think is one of the most important issues, is that you make an engagement with the school completely different than standard education. You are part of the school. You are a partner of the school. The school don't look you as a traditional provider. Correct. Okay? So, and the good thing, for example, the school, the churn rate, when we have to renew the contract, is 4%. It's almost nothing. So the engagement we take to the schools is very, very strong, and almost 300,000 students are working on the platform, on the project every single day. And it was a successful experience of transformation from standard and traditional education into a digital integrated ecosystem.
Got it. Yeah.
Yeah.
So fair to say, lack of digital hygiene, 6 out of 10 7.5 out of 10?
I would be pretty on this one.
7.5, 8, 7.5, 8.
Okay, fair. We're going to talk a little bit about AI. We were having a small chat preparing for the session, and I was reflecting on a diagram that I saw last week or a couple of days back, and it was interesting. It was like, imagine this cycle, right? AI helps generate lesson plans and contents and questions for the teacher. AI helps the student respond those same questions, go through that content. AI helps the teacher evaluate the responses, and the circle starts again, right? Hopefully that's not the future of education publishing and education experiences that we go into the future, but it's a reality of some of the mix of tools and collision of use cases that we see. I promise we're going to talk about some of the opportunities that we all feel, I think, AI has for the publishing and education publishing industry. But I want to start first with some of the challenges that I think over the last 2.5 years this group has faced. So I'll start in this case by Alberto. What do you think have been some of the key challenges that you have observed now that we have 2.5 years of generative AI being in the education space?
I think the major challenge is the example you gave. So not become crazy with AI and at the end make this loop, absurd loop, but to make something that really helps and it helps. So the point here is that how can we use EA to give value to each of these three parts, teachers, students, publishers, that at the end enrich education. And so for us was not trusting everything to the existing models. So it can surprise us a lot that we ask, okay, make me a lot of exercises on mathematics, and it makes, and you say, and solve all these exercises, and they solve, and correct. And we are quite impressed, but that's not enough. I think it's one of the tools of the chain. So for example, in our case at the BQ, we have worked a lot on modeling the knowledge with graphs and making this AI work over these graphs, developing custom algorithms. So at the end, what do develop is not a product which is made for conversation, and it can conversate quite well, but that takes that ability into the aspect of modeling knowledge. And with that model, it's very interesting because you have a precise image of where the student is, what he knows, what he doesn't know, why don't he know this because he lacks knowing this and this. So you can propose a learning path that, again, it will be dialogic. And there, the Gen AI is great because it's dialogic. It's dialogic, but what you have to teach, what you have to test, what you have to provide to the student, it's not something that LLMs are made for. They can do it, but they are not made for that. So
would you say a human in the loop is critical,
yeah,
right? The human in the loop.
Exactly.
Alberto, your thoughts on challenges for AI that you have seen, or have you done anything different in the last 2 years when it comes to AI?
Well, well, AI is not the final destination. It's part of the long journey into digital transformation. That's maybe because AI burst a few years ago. So that's one of the issues, that technology in education is not fulfilled yet, because it's a continuous process, a continuous stage process of innovation and transformation. There is a lot of opportunities with AI, blended education, personalized education, by adaptive learning programs, AI tutoring, I think is very important. And there is beginning to appear a lot of projects in AI tutoring, professional development of the teachers. But I think one of the biggest challenges we consider is the trust of information. Especially in education, it is very important that the students has the information, they come out of the information with those AI tools is truly information. I think it's very, very important and very sensitive issue.
So I could say almost it's like a human in the loop, a trusted knowledge party in the loop,
Right.
critical as well, right? Some of the challenges if that's not present. Tony, for you, some of the challenges?
Some of the challenges, I think, I mean, if I just reflect on the last couple of years, when of course, during the birth of Gen AI, of course, there was actually a lot of, I would say, anxiety across the entire corporation, right? And I think when you just actually look at the opportunities that Gen AI actually give us as a publisher, first, think about just the translation capabilities that actually AI has provided, right? I mean, we operate in 100 countries that give us opportunity to translate our program much faster, make them profitable, that give us the access of number of tools that can be embedded in our product, like AI assistant. We can actually run assessment directly as well, so kids get an opportunity to understand concept, right, quicker. They can actually ask questions as well. And of course, probably the anxiety for us, and when we see the disruption from the entire landscape. And let's be clear, and I think that's the same challenges for the two Alberto. When we release a new tool, it's been tested millions of hours by humans, right? So we are not going to release something which is going to be tested by another AI system, right? And that's very key because when we want to deliver something, being a perfectionist and publisher are, and I can talk about all my colleagues, we want to make sure that the tools are being really tested and that we are not going to have a prompt or a wrong prompt which is going to generate a wrong answer, right? And that's very important, right? So, and then of course, over time, I see actually more and more opportunities for more and more tools to be embedded in our product. I mean, we've just released a writing essay, so a tool to help kids to write essay, right? And in the time where a lot of kids, my kids, go to ChatGPT, right? I think it's never been so important to help them to actually structure their idea and make sure actually they can really use more critical thinking rather than trying to go to and find the easy answer, right? So I see this as a real opportunity, of course, on the, I would say more on the back office side because it gives us access, more opportunity to translate, to adapt products coming from US, coming from other markets, from Mexico. So that gives us a massive opportunity to give access to more product, to more people, and that's a great thing. And then, of course, as we continue to embed some of the tools that will be tested by us, by a real human, we clearly continue to empower educators to drive more engagement in the classroom, right? And let's be clear, our job, and that will never change, right, is to empower educators and to make sure we can provide solutions to make them more engaging for our kids, right? And that's the most important thing.
Thank you, Tony. I'm kind of reflecting on something that you've said or touched on it briefly, and this is an open question to the three of you, whoever wants to take it first. Do you think that we're talking enough to the final users? In a way, raise your hand if you've used a generative AI tool in the last week, right? Right? So pretty much everyone, right? And the other ones were probably using it right now and they were not paying attention. So in a way, we are being infected a little bit with commercial AI solutions are, and perhaps how that needs to impact the education space, right? Or how do we understand the education space? We were talking before, are we asking enough the parents, the students, the teachers about what they want to extract from AI or from the experience or from the technology interaction with AI? I'm coming last week from like a big conference with a lot of ministers of education. And basically the whole request from most of them, and these were from mostly low and middle income countries, it's like, how many kilograms of AI can you give me, right? And it's like, well, what do you want it to do, right? Yeah. So do you think we should be talking more, or we're talking enough to the different stakeholders in order to design the right solutions? And up to you who takes the question next.
Well, like I said, AI burst suddenly. few years ago, 2 years ago. And of course, talking about the schools, they don't know what they want, but they know they need something else.
Yeah.
So, and they are expecting that our publishing companies, EdTechs, provide the solution. So I think the responsibility is very high, it's very important. So we are handling a high expectation as AI providers. So that we need to develop projects that they don't really know what they want, but they expect something. So there is a lot of, like I said, AI tutoring, personalized education, adaptive learning, that we are developing those programs for the schools. And of course, maybe when we go to the school and show they will, oh, yes, that's what I wanted. I knew it from the first time. Yeah. It's not true, you didn't know it. But that's because I'm talking that it's very important, the responsibility we have as a technological providers for the schools. We have a huge, high responsibility to use AI in a proper manner.
Got it. So you're pretty much saying like the old Henry Ford quote, like if we ask the schools, they're going to ask for like faster horses, right? That type of thing, right?
Yeah,
okay.
Kind of.
Interesting.
Right.
Opinion on your end?
So I have an experience very similar to Alberto. So we went to speak with some teachers and we told them, look, we are able to provide exercises that are adapted to the level of each student, so the whole classroom won't make the same thing, but each one will have the exercise in front of them that they need, and then you will have this dashboard in which we will show you where each student is and everything very clear and the actions that you might take. So the teacher was still the leader of the classroom, but it was the machine taking feedback and proposing. And all the teachers said, no, that cannot happen. I need to know what's happening in the classroom. So I need all the students to make exactly the same, because otherwise it's a chaos. And I guess that we are not so happy with change. We are not so happy losing control. But in fact, that happens in our everyday life. When we take the lift, the elevator, it can, I guess the first people taking an elevator were very afraid, or taking a car, or if I go to the bus, I don't make an alcohol test to the driver just in case. I need to trust in the people, in the technology, in the machine. So I think they should be in the center, but also we need to help them to understand that things can change for good. Change are not always bad. So that's a challenge there also.
Good. Tony, you have perspective?
I mean, there are so many conversations around AI, and I think I would probably be very much in sync with what you just said. We talk to a lot of institutions now. What do you have as part of your AI product bag or portfolio, right? So that's actually not the question. It's more, what is your strategy, your policy with regards to AI? That's probably more the question. So a lot of people actually, they know they have to do something, they know they have to embrace the change, but they are clearly not able to articulate actually what they need. We have a product called Alex, and we have been using AI for like 15 years. It looked like some of our customers actually just discovered that we have this product. That's the old machine learning AI, but of course this is actually how we managed to develop a very personalized learning pipe for kids, typically. I mean, 5-year-old kids, late kindergarten, and in grade 6, born in January, would be 1 year older, in effect, than the kids in December. So how do we basically acknowledge this? And how do we basically drive and build different learning paths for those kids, right? As you said, the teacher would want to basically teach the same thing for all the kids in the class, but we know that when you have a 20% gap between actually a kid, in effect, in terms of brain connection, whatever, you have to acknowledge this, right? So anyway, just to say that we have already a number of tools, and I'm not just talking about McGraw, I'm talking about all the publishers. But we probably just need to get this milestone where the schools, institutions need to have this kind of strategic, very clear strategic guideline, or they want to, what do they want to get from AI? What is really their policy first, their governance as well? I think only 20% of the schools now have some kind of embryotic AI policy, right? This has to change. And then when we have this conversation, and we have more and more conversation directly with schools, we get a better sense of how we can actually provide those solutions, and we can help them to deploy those solutions as well. A key component, I think, and that's, we have not talked so much about the digital divide, and I think we're having that conversation. We're having a lot of conversation with Ministry of Education, right? So there are a lot of solutions that could be deployed at a pretty, very affordable cost, right? Most of the time, those conversations don't go anywhere because you realize that the logistic infrastructure to train millions of teachers would be basically a big issue, right? And that's a shame because I believe that we have actually a lot, many solutions and products that could actually make a big difference for the bigger population. And now we seem to be in a situation where those tools are being used by private schools, and we seem to see the leverage level of kids going down in many Western countries, while you have the top 10 that seem to always actually be better and better, right? And that's something that I believe we would love to address, and we would love to have more conversation in education. When I reflect now on these spendings in defense that are going to be excluded from the Maastricht criteria, I think it would make sense for us to exclude investment in education as well in the next few years, because that's really what is going to drive GDP growth in the next few years in Europe. Yes.
Yeah, difficult when the average minister stays in power for 22 months, 22 months, right? It's a difficult thing to have certain stability.
Difficult.
We have like a minute left. Open to you in 60 seconds. If any one of you want to share what you are really excited about what's coming up, feel free to take the floor. We're going to have time for one, so I'll put you on the spot.
Yeah, well, in my case, I'm really excited about what is coming next, especially we're talking about the AI. We are making some, we're investing in AI solutions for the schools. I think there is a whole opportunity ahead, and the most valuable, important thing for me is that it's continuing. So, you said before, is the education and technology fulfilled for the last years? Not because AI burst suddenly, and then comes a new era. So, I'm very excited. So, but we need to keep this in a real sense, common sense, and responsibility for the future of the kids and education.
Agreed. I think last week I was in a panel where the Minister of Education in Finland was describing the correlation of AI with being in a car, and that we need to make sure that we use the brake as well as the accelerator and the steering as well, right? So I think that's a joint responsibility. I think we're getting to the top of the 45 minutes. I've been told that we could take some questions from the audience. If you don't have questions, I have plenty of questions for the three of them for the next 2 hours probably. So I don't know if we want to jump into some question or we go straight for the lunch break. Good? Well, thank you everyone. Thank you to the three of you for our wonderful panel.